show, well, the tables are turning big times. The Democrats are going and turning in on themselves. So Mayor Adams over New York has now been indicted by the DOJ. This guy, who they said allegedly partook in, going after Trump in New York over the hush money trial, worked with Alvin Braggs, is now being targeted. They say he took over hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of benefits from other countries and never disclosed it. He even released a video that I promise you, you're not even going to believe it when you see it, because it sounds very similar to what we've heard from Trump. Also, just like this, like they're trying to go after Trump, there's been the case that they're saying that the reason they're going after Mayor Adams is because he's been against the illegal migrants that have been sent to New York City. This is crazy. Not only that, a lot of Congress people are jumping into the mix with the new report that came from the Secret Service talking about there needs to be an overhaul with the Secret Service leadership and all of its protocols and how they need to be held accountable. Because with this report, they have found they don't do anything that they say they're doing, and leadership is not taking accountability. So we've got some big things that are happening. I'm telling you, you're not going to believe these videos when you see them, but this is a 2024 election year, and we said it would be crazy. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you don't mind, click the thumbs up like button. It really does help to grow the channel. And just want to say thank you to all of our members. We've got a special show coming up next. Tonight, we're going to be doing something very special at the end of the show, showing you that this channel is going to be more than just reporting news, and we are going to give back and make a difference. And I also want to thank everybody who blesses our family with a super chat donation. We are so thankful and grateful for every single one of y'all, and we are here to serve you. But I'm telling you, this is not by coincidence that now Mayor Eric Adams is now being indicted by the DOJ. Check this out.
He's the first New York City mayor to face criminal charges, and Mayor Eric Adams says it's all payback for calling out the Biden-Harris border failures watch.
I have been fighting injustice my entire life. That fight has continued as your mayor. Despite our pleas, when the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I have been facing these lies for months since I began to speak out for all of you.
Joining us now to react, New York City GOP Councilman Joe
That's
Morelli.
huge. That's big.
Joe, thanks so much for joining the program. Hopefully you can give us some insight. Look, I don't know if he's innocent or guilty. I just find to give us some insight. Look, I don't know if he's innocent or guilty. I just find the timing a little coincidental, and I don't believe in coincidences and politics. He was a co-chair of the campaign for Biden and Harris. And all of a sudden, when he starts to criticize them on their migrant crisis, he gets an investigation. Why is that?
No, and certainly 4 years ago or so, I would have never questioned the impartiality of the DOJ. But that question doesn't exist only when it's someone I happen to support is a target of that investigation. And there's a lot of things with this case that just might be a hair too cute. And again, he might be completely guilty, but it is a little bit too cute that the police commissioner was hired a week later. His home gets raided for documents. For documents from 20 years ago, Lawrence. And it's not a coincidence that they raided this campaign staffer's home the day he was going to the White House to tell Joe Biden to end the migrant crisis. So this might just be a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences.
Joe, we're also waiting for the indictment to come out so we can know some of the charges. But some of the allegations is a lot of these foreign governments, all these businessmen were giving him some money to his campaign.
Yeah.
In return, there would be some calls made to City Hall or whatever to get permits and all that. Every mayor I know of does that. And as honest as we like them to be, they always get contributions to their campaign. So are we going to investigate all the rest of them as well?
Right, and that's really the crux of what we're talking about, and that's why so many of us are so...
Guys, this is nuts. Look at this title at the bottom. Mayor Adams claims he's being targeted for criticizing admin's failures on migrant crisis. You just heard he was part of the Biden-Harris team. But then he starts calling them out because New York City's getting flooded with illegal migrants. And then now he's got the DOJ after him. Let me know in the comments, do you think this is targeted?
For this indictment to be unsealed. If it's a weak case, then it only goes in further to what I was saying about the impartiality of the DOJ. I mean, right now, we just simply don't know. If it's beyond the scope and it's beyond taking, Turkish airline tickets or a free meal or something like that, yeah, it is troubling and it could end his mayoralty. But I'll also point out, Lawrence, that the people who are chomping at the bit and who are excited about this are the far left politicians in New York City who believe they can take over this city if something happens to it.
Well, they also don't like his response to crime in this city, which you had a mayor before that didn't support the police, and he's a former cop. He supported the cops here. They've changed. I mean, I'm not saying things are perfect in the city right now, but there has been a little bit more of going on the offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lawrence, I disagree with Mayor Adams as a Republican half the time, but I can assure you, if the public advocate, Jumaane Williams, or the comptroller, Brad Lander, if these people whose names will be familiar to Americans very soon, if these people lead the city, I'll be disagreeing with them 99% of the time at least.
Yeah, or Cuomo, who wants to make a return after, killing the grandmothers and grandfathers in the nursing homes. Joe, thanks so much.
Let me tell you this. This is, if there's ever a case study to show what it's like to be on the other side. Now, I don't know if Adams is guilty or not. All I know is that it just seems too coincidental. And now to see this and him saying that the reason is because he called out the admin on the illegal migrant crisis. If he's innocent, it'll be interesting to see. Just like somebody said in the comments, what is it you now know what if Trump's been feeling like this entire time? Let me know your comments. But it's not just that. So Dan Bongino's got some breaking news over the January 6th riot, the pipe bomb, the things that are going on behind the scenes. I want you to see, but it's just mind-blowing. The stuff that we learn, we don't see it through the mainstream media. You got to go and find it, but we've got that for you right here. Check it out.
Back to the show. Darren Beattie, Julie Kelly have been all over this story. Cannot thank them enough. They are not letting this January 6th story go. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a huge freaking scandal. You have been told January 6th was an insurrection, worse than Pearl Harbor, the Civil War, all this stuff. Now You're finding out slowly but surely that the government had an enormous role in January 6th, and they're hiding this thing. Now do you see why?
This is
crazy. I'm going to ask you a question. Please, folks in the chat, please chime in. Now do you see why it is so important they make Donald Trump go away before the election? Do you get it now? Is all this stuff coming together? If this guy gets elected, every one of these agencies involved in this is going to be feverishly burning paper and deleting emails. But there are other people who have them. Just trust me, there are other people who have them. That's why they're terrified. Kamala Harris gets elected. The cackler, the low IQ cackler, all this, you will never, ever, ever get to the truth here. This is in a newsletter today, right, guys? If this wasn't in a newsletter, everyone's fired. Was that in there? Okay, good. We can preserve jobs. This is good. I don't want the union getting on me or anything. Revolver. You got to read this story. Breaking yesterday. Government source confirms FBI dirty tricks with key January 6th pipe bomb footage as cover-up unravels. So, folks, leave this up on the screen. I'll take it down. Darren Beattie's team has a new source. Here's the bottom line. The FBI is telling us in front of the DNC when Kamala Harris was in there that there was some assassination plot and a bomb was there. There's video. There is an extensive camera network around the DNC. But the weirdest thing is, as Tom Massey just told you in that clip, the FBI is claiming they don't have the footage. Oh, really? Here, from the piece. First, we definitively proved that the FBI decided to withhold footage from the DNC camera from the public, which would clearly show the pipe bomber actually planning the bomb. We encourage readers who have not read our piece on this to watch the following video, and you can see it in the piece if you want to watch it. Here, let me just, bottom line up front. Folks, the FBI and the DNC have a video and a camera focused on the bench where the pipe bomb was planted, and yet nobody's seen it.
Wow.
Why? The answer is simple. Because if they make public the video of the man or woman planting the pipe bomb, someone's going to recognize that person, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's Eddie Jones or Tony Bag of Donuts. And I can almost guarantee you the conservative media is going to be at that person's door and is going to find out they were working with the anti-Trump crowd. 100%. 100%. I am all in on this. Here, his source, the government official, part 2 from this piece. This piece only gets better, by the way. The government official in question reported that the DNC footage of the bomber that they watched depicted the pipe bomber actually planting the bomb.
This is insane. The whole entire time, remember, they've always said that Trump was the one who instigated January 6th. Trump was the one who didn't send the National Guard. Trump never requested additional support. The pipe bomb, all this was all targeted. It's all fake. It's all a cover up, and we're seeing it right before our eyes.
They have the footage and, quote, did not note any problem with the frame rate or the clarity of the picture. In contrast, by the way, to what the FBI released publicly, which is some grainy picture. The government official did not, as one would expect, obtain this footage from the FBI. Instead, the government official watched the footage at the DNC building. Darren Beatty and his crew, if this whistleblower is legit, and I have no reason to believe he isn't, you have just cracked open the scandal of a lifetime.
There is
a clear video of some person planting this pipe bomb that the FBI's hiding, the Secret Service has deleted the texts of, and the phone companies, private phone companies are out there corrupting files to not expose who this person is. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy just blew open the biggest scandal of a lifetime. I have not changed my story for 3 years on this. This was absolutely an inside job. There is no way the government is going to all this trouble to hide this person's identity.
Wow.
Why doesn't the FBI want you to see the bomber? I will tell you again, because if they put the video out there, if they put this out there, there you go. If they put some clear video of this out there, of this person dropping the bomb, and there's an identifier they can see, they will identify this person, conservative media. What's that? That video is absolute shit. They released a garbage video on purpose. You can see it on the screen right now if you're watching on Rumble. They released it on purpose. And by the way, I don't believe that's the bomber at all. Because the Secret Service would have, that's the night before. The Secret Service would have found the bomb. Remember, the bomb dogs are not political.
That's true.
Folks, even if you're in the chat, understandably saying, Dan, with all the Secret Service failures lately, how could they miss the bomb? It's not, the dog walked by it, folks. I'm not apologizing for anyone. I'm not telling you there couldn't have been involvement. I'm not telling you it's not Secret Service corruption. I'm not telling you any of that. I'm simply telling you the dog is not political. The dog is trained to sit when it senses an explosive. There is zero chance it misses the bomb. The only explanation is the bomb wasn't there.
Ooh.
It was only placed minutes or seconds before it was found. There's another piece to this, right?
That is crazy.
Here, one more piece to this. Darren says, finally, there's the odd fact that the government official in question had to go to the DNC rather than the FBI. Remember Massey, the video I just played, Massey asking Horowitz, our hapless inspector general here, hey man, how does the FBI not have this video? The DNC has it. He says it's possible the official simply wanted to go to the source of the footage and got lucky that the DNC hadn't deleted it yet.
Wow.
It curiously deleted its footage from January 6th. Again, why delete the J6 footage and hold on to the footage from the evening before? Remember, that guy you're seeing on the screen or woman is from the night before. I don't believe that's the real bomber. And they're not even releasing clear footage on that. Folks, this is a huge monster scandal. I want you to watch Horowitz again in this video. I'm going to take a short break, our last one. Horowitz squirm again under questioning with Massey when he's asked another critical question, which makes me now affirmatively 100% believe my conclusion is true. This was an inside job.
Wow.
The bomber part, and that the so-called insurrection, there's a deeper story there, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
This is the whole point of why we're showing you this. is because a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, we're not seeing the truth. We're not seeing the what is actually happening behind the scenes, who's making the actual plays against certain people. And this begs the question, who can we trust? The FBI, the DOJ, all these things, it's just like there's too much politics involved. And now when you throw in that Iran, we know that there's threats against Trump from Iran, but yet we still allow the president of Iran to come in to the country and get Secret Service protection? Is that not crazy? Yet we got to pass a bill just to give Trump Secret Service, extra Secret Service protection? Tell me that there's something not going on behind that's just not right 100%. Check out this, because this, to me, this tells a lot.
Joining us with more, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, Fox News contributor Joe Concha. Let's talk about the rhetoric, Jim Jordan. If I said the things that you just heard, what would the narrative on me be if I said it about Democrats, which, by the way, I wouldn't say?
No, of course you wouldn't say that, but the Democrats would go crazy and there'd be all kinds of things said about you then after those statements. But they talked about threats. How about the real threats? The real threat of Iran, who said they want to assassinate President Trump. Iran, who's behind the attacks on our best friend, the state of Israel. Iran, who hacked President Trump's campaign, got a 271-page dossier on vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance that they put together when they were vetting who was going to be the VP, and leaked it to the Harris campaign. And then it winds up in the press. How about that real threat? And we're trying to get answers from the FBI, and we haven't got any yet. When did they get it? When did they know about this? Did they give President Trump a defensive briefing? This is Iran, for goodness sake. That's a real threat versus all this talk from the left about President Trump. When President Trump was in office, Iran wasn't behind attacks on Israel. Didn't happen. Russia wasn't in Ukraine. I mean, that is a real threat, and they're going after a president. Makes no sense. I want to know how that got hacked, because if it had been reversed, Sean, if it would have been, oh, Iran hacks the Harris campaign and gave a 271-page dossier on Tim Walz to the Trump campaign, and it wound up in the press, oh my good, there'd already be a special counsel. So that's the real threat, and they can say all they want, but I think the American people see through it all.
Joe, you study the media constantly. You hear the rhetoric, even now, and then you watch this pathetic interview. I'll scroll all the questions that weren't brought up tonight to remind our audience. I go through the list often. Your reaction?
Well, Sean, you're exactly right about that. The rhetoric, remember, after Donald Trump was elected, there was literally in Central Park a rendition of Caesar, except they replaced Caesar with Donald Trump, and then he is shown stabbed to death at the end of that particular play. And we all remember Kathy Griffin holding up a severed head of the likeness of Donald Trump. I can go on, but yeah, this has been...
Do y'all remember that? Whenever Kathy Griffin did that? If it was ever done to somebody on the Democratic side, you would never hear the end of it.
On now for many years, and enough people are going to be triggered by that where they might actually try to take the president's life out. Now, as far as this debate, we saw exactly, this interview tonight, we saw exactly why Stephanie Ruhle was chosen to conduct this interview, if you could even call it that. Not one fact check, neither during or after this interview, just like we saw with the ABC debate. Not one interruption once again. And Kamala Harris sounded again like a sophomore trying to get through a minimum time limit, giving an oral book report. There was not one question, Sean, on Joe Biden's mental decline and Kamala Harris's role in the biggest cover-up in political history. Not one question on taxing unrealized capital gains, which every economist says will tank the stock market. Not one question on Kamala, literally on tape, chanting over and over, down, down with deportation, unquote, right before her first run for president. Easy questions asked, Sean. Do you still support shutting down all deportations, Madam Vice President? You once compared ICE agents to the KKK. Why should anyone believe that you're tough on the border now?
Exactly.
Hey, Ms. Harris, do sanctuary cities really work? Hey, by the way, you signed a petition that the U.S. government should pay for sex changes for illegals. Is that still the case? Ms. Harris, can men get pregnant? And Kamala Harris, once again, the most scripted, rehearsed candidate you will ever ever see. During her first answer, within the first sentence, she was already talking about hopes and dreams and aspirations. Within the first 90 seconds, she once again reminded us that she grew up in a middle class household. In the same answer, she went right back to hopes and dreams and aspirations. During one answer on tax rates, she said no less than 4 times in the same answer that people need to pay their fair share. And when asked why the Teamsters wouldn't endorse her, she didn't answer the question at all. The CPU that is her brain malfunctioned once again. And as we're seeing now with recent polls like Gallup showing they're forecasting a 3-point popular vote victory for Trump, and they're very accurate, Gallup is, in these situations, she's going to have to go with a different approach because this is not going well. And it's definitely not going to play well in the states that matter, like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina.
Jim Jordan, I want to get an update on the weaponization of our Justice Department. We
This
expect
is so
tomorrow
crazy.
on the January 6 case, which, by the way, we now have 5 people, including General Milley, Acting Defense Secretary Miller, Kash Patel, Mark Meadows, and Donald Trump, all confirming that he authorized National Guard troops prior to January 6th, on January 3rd. But they're going to lay out this case while early voting is going on, 40 days before an election. My understanding is that violates a provision in the DOJ manual. It is obviously political. It is designed to put these allegations in front of the American people before the election with no meaningful chance of rebuttal. And all the media will do is quote it.
Yeah.
Now, is that the DOJ putting cinder blocks on the scale of an election? What a shock.
Yeah, and we had a hearing today where we had the Inspector General for the Justice Department in, and he basically said that under a questioning from one of our members, that he believes that there were confidential human sources here on January 6th. We want that report released. Now, he didn't absolutely confirm that, but it sure sounded like that was the case. And that report is not going to come out, based on his testimony today, not going to come out until after the election. That's information we'd like to know now, 41 days before the most important election we have in our country.
Well, the DOJ needs to not do this tomorrow, and there are questions as to the legitimacy of the appointment of the special counsel as determined by the Florida judge, Eileen Cannon. All right, Jim Jordan, thank you.
Let me tell you this. If there's anything that if we're not seeing the basis of true politics right now, then I don't see how it could get any worse. The amount of cases that are being brought up, how the cases are being brought up. You know, Kamala Harris does this MSNBC interview, which she was pushed back by this interviewee, by the person interviewing on a lot of stuff, and she literally said nothing. It was the most mind-blowing interview ever. And what I love is that they bring on this guy. He's awesome. Scott Jennings, they pull him on CNN. They ask him about why does, because these people are hammering him. Well, Donald Trump is always taking care of the rich people. Okay, so you act like there's no rich people from the Democratic side. If you look at all the top companies, Facebook, Meta, even Tesla, all these, they're very, like 90% of everybody that works there, which the average salary is like $150,000, $200,000, they all give to what? The left Democratic side. But they try to turn it and say that, oh, Trump is always for the rich, when in fact the statistics show that more of the rich give to the left Democratic side. Check this out.
Yeah, I'm still confused about which billionaire rich people are good and which are bad. Trump is, I guess, bad. The people who support Trump are bad. The billionaires that she goes around with, I guess, are good. I think it's a very muddled thing, and I still don't understand. I think today was a miss for Harris. I mean, Joe Biden went on TV today and said he delegated all sorts of authority to her on domestic policy. We know that the Biden administration is not popular on domestic and economic policy. She gave a speech today saying we've got to move past the policies that people think have failed. Well, people think the last 4 years are a failure. And from what I can tell from this interview tonight, which was really a home game, I mean, going on with this particular interviewer was like effectively interviewing with her campaign's press secretary. She had nothing new to say on the economy beyond this ridiculous pablum. You want to talk about aspirations and dreams? They're crushed in this country because of inflation, and these kinds of interviews and the day that she had today are not going to solve it.
So, Jane,
That's the truth. Like, it's just so one-sided when we look at it, that they only choose one side. It's only Trump's billionaire friends that are bad. But guess what? Whenever Michelle Obama went on stage and said that Trump's bad and all he helps out is his billionaire friends, and that that her parents told her to always be leery of the rich people, it's like, do you think we're stupid? Michelle and Barack Obama are worth upwards of $100 million. They brought on Oprah. Oprah's a billionaire. Like, it blows my mind how they don't think we can just go Google this stuff. And Melania Trump comes out. She talks about she talks about what actually happened when Harris replaced Biden as the nominee. And what's crazy is that she's not a politician. She doesn't get up there and make speeches, but she can make a more coherent sentence than Kamala Harris, who's actually running for president. Check this out.
The country is suffering. People are not able to buy usual necessities for the families. We have wars going on around the world. Soldiers are dying. They were dying under this administration because of weak leadership. The border is open and dangerous. A lot of fentanyl is coming over, killing our youth. If we compare these 4 years under this administration compared to 4 years under my husband as commander-in-chief, he was leading the country through peace, through strength. And the border was safer than ever before. We didn't have any wars. People were prospering. They had jobs. They could support their families. So I think American people need to decide what they really want. Maybe some, strong tweets, but everything else great for this country.
How awesome is that? Like, she did a full interview, but I just love it because she's able to actually articulate what's going on and how people are feeling rather than mumble through word salad like how Kamala Harris does. And it's mind-blowing because now that we have all this additional information about, that's her husband who they've been trying to kill, who's the father to her son. Like, that's real. What we saw was real, not this fake interviews that they post up for Harris. And now we got more data from about the whole things going on with the FBI. All the Congress people are basically saying we need a clean house. Check this out.
Donald Trump is facing ongoing threats to his life. 2 assassination attempts here in the United States. And now we are learning Iran is targeting Trump over and over and over. They're going to have to work to keep him safe. What is going to be done to make sure that the former president of the United States, our 45th, is safe? And what is the Biden-Harris administration's plan to foil Iran's ongoing plots? This is Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-hosts, Kayleigh McEnany and Emily Compagno. Also joining us today, journalism fellow for the Steamboat Institute and senior fellow for the Independent Women's Forum, Kayleigh McGee-White, and host of Making Money on Fox Business, Charles Payne. We'll begin with what went wrong in Butler, Pennsylvania. The Senate released a preliminary report which found the U.S. Secret Service responsible for the widespread security failures at Trump's July 13th rally.
Wow.
The revelations are nothing short of shocking. David Spunt is live at the Justice Department with the latest. David.
Hi, Harris. Good afternoon. 2 weeks ago, Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut told Fox News that Americans would be, as he used the word, shocked, and he also said they would be appalled when they read this preliminary report. Let's get to the highlights of the report. There's going to be a lot here, but it's important that we get through it. The first is from a local Butler police officer and what that Butler police officer told the Senate crew. The Butler commander involved in the advanced planning described the July 11th site walkthrough as incredibly disorganized. disorganized with no coordination, really just people milling about. I felt like there was no plan. The Secret Service did not give state or local partners specific instructions for covering the AGR building, including the position of local snipers. Now, Thomas Crooks, the shooter, was on top of that AGR building when at 6:11 p.m. he fired 8 rounds from an AR-15 style rifle. He killed a man named Corey Comparatori, injured 3 others, including the former president. In an interview with the committee, a Secret Service counter-sniper leader was asked, did the thought even cross your mind that you should inform someone to keep the protectee from going on stage, or if he already was on stage, take him back? Did that thought even cross your mind? Now, the answer is the thought did not cross my mind. It was more of a find out what's happening, figure out what's happening.
Wow.
Can we help? Can we take action? Harris, this is after there was already commotion. The report mentions how Crooks flew a drone 200 yards from the site and used a range finder. Now, he flew a drone no problem, but the Secret Service, for some reason, could not fly their drone, citing technical issues. With no backup system, the Secret Service agent responsible for overseeing the drone capabilities at the July 13th rally called a toll-free 888 tech support hotline to start troubleshooting with the company, which took several hours. That agent had only 3 months of experience working with that equipment and lacked knowledge about it. Now, this agent also admitted that he did not follow USS standard protocol when he replaced Ethernet cable with another Ethernet cable he found with the Trump campaign equipment. So the Secret Service is admitting complete fault here, saying they're going to make changes. In a statement, the Chief of Communications, Anthony Guglielmi, tells Fox News, many of the insights gained from the Senate report align with the findings from our mission assurance review and are essential to ensuring that what happened on July 13th never happens again. Former President Donald Trump is receiving the highest level of protection that the U.S. Secret Service can provide, and we will continue to evaluate and adjust our specific protectee measures and methodology based on each location and situation. And I'll end with this, and I know there's a lot of information here. This was the first time that a major party nominee had counter snipers assigned to them at a rally. Donald Trump still had not received technically the nomination yet. And the reason that those counter snipers were sent is because of the looming threat from Iran.
Wow.
1 day before, a man named Asif Merchant was arrested by the feds in New York, and he was allegedly potentially looking at harming former President Trump, Vice President Harris, and current President Biden. So that's the reason that those counter snipers were there, to take out the shooter that day. Back to you.
David Spunt, I have said this all along. They wouldn't have even been needed if they'd listened to those bystanders with their cell phones and had flagged the fact that there was a guy on the rooftop. They could have moved him out of the way, but they didn't. David, thank you. And Charles, to that point, what we also learned from that just explosive report today was that the man in charge of having potentially to make that decision was asked. And so we could read this in the report. Did it ever cross your mind to remove the protectee from the stage? And that individual answered, it never crossed his or her mind.
No, it's so interesting that this role for the Secret Service was given to them after an assassination of a president, right? And you think of all the particular scenarios that you would train for. This would be the main scenario in this particular instance, and the fact that, my main takeaway from this is a lack of communication and a lack of accountability. Mm-hmm. And no organization, no matter what size, can survive like that, but certainly one that's been tasked with the task of the U.S. Secret Service. This is, to your point, stunning, I think is the right word.
Yeah, so Democrat Senator Dick Blumenthal, to Charles's point, called it, when it came to communications, Kayleigh, a catastrophic collapse of comms.
That's exactly what it was. Look, we know now that Iran had a threat against President Trump ahead of this rally. And you're telling me there were no visual barriers outside of the rally, and that there was catastrophic communications, to your point. And that there was not intelligence sharing with Secret Service officers on the ground that Iran wanted to take out former President Trump. You didn't have drones in the sky but for 1 hour, and a guy had to call a toll-free hotline about the drone, when meanwhile the shooter had a drone in the air for 11 minutes. All of this. And my question is, What was Kimberly Cheadle doing? Remember, she was a Jill Biden protectee. She was looking over Jill, and when she was First Lady, she gets this huge job in Secret Service. What was she doing? If I knew I had a protectee that was being threatened by Iran, I would be micromanaging that protection. What was Ronald Rowe doing? That was her deputy. He's now the head of Secret Service.
Why is he there?
Why is he there? Blumenthal has said we need a change in leadership. Rand Paul has said we need a change in leadership. I don't know who specifically they mean, but I know that's a Republican and a Democrat stating the obvious. We need to clean house at the top of Secret Service.
All right, I do want to drill down with one point you made. The drone call to the 800 line was because there was a little bit of confusion from what I've read about how to do the job of using the drone.
Yeah, the guy had only had 1 hour of training. And look, I want to be clear. Secret Service on the ground, there were heroes that day, even amid failures. There were heroes down in Palm
100%.
Beach. But what training is given to you is leadership's call. You've only been given 1 hour of training. That goes to leadership. That goes to Ronald Rowe. That goes to Kim Cheadle.
So, Kayleigh, really what this all communicates very clearly is the slow rolling that we seem to be watching from the very early stages. I mean, pressure from Republicans on the Hill to get investigations rolling after that first attempt led them woefully unprepared for a potential second one. And there was a second attempt. Now, Kayleigh just mentioned that, great things have happened around some heroes there, but by the grace of God, one agent and some bystanders in Florida as well.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize what Kayleigh mentioned earlier, because what I find most disturbing about the Senate report is the unwillingness of Secret Service leadership to take responsibility for the many failures
100%.
that the agency itself has admitted to. And I want to read this from the report because the senators said that throughout their investigation, key Secret Service officials declined to acknowledge individual areas of responsibility for planning or security as having contributed to the failure to prevent the shooting that day. They are unwilling to admit their own responsibility and what happened. And this is becoming a really alarming pattern in this administration in particular, where you have top people in the administration who refuse to admit that they are public servants of the American taxpayers. Every single Secret Service leader who was involved that day should have resigned voluntarily.
Yes.
And yet it took a congressional hearing where Kimberly Cheadle was mocked by both sides of the political aisle for her to resign. Where was Joe Biden? Why wasn't he calling on her to resign himself? Where was Alejandro Mayorkas? Why hadn't he fired her? This should never have happened. And the fact that Secret Service leaders are still not stepping down is really troubling.
Yeah, well, we know where Joe Biden...
Let me tell you this. This just says everything about Joe Biden's presidency. And Harris, too. Whenever they botched the Afghanistan withdrawal, nobody got fired. With this whole Trump assassination attempt, Joe Biden didn't fire anybody. Harris didn't fire anybody. It was all they resigned, and yet no one else has been fired. No accountability, no leadership whatsoever. Joe Biden should have came out and said, you know what? This is unacceptable. We have to protect our former presidents, our candidates. We're going to be making some personnel changes. We have to make sure we have the right leadership because this cannot happen to our people, to our leaders. And actually show some dang leadership when it comes to people that are failing at their job. And you just heard complete incompetence. But that's just how that's a lot how the Democratic side is running right now. It's not all of them, but it's what we're seeing with the leadership. But what's also really sad is what you're about to see right here. So CNN went and did a report on Kids on Politics. They found that Democratic-leaning kids with Democratic parents, are 9 times more likely to share negative emotions about Trump than Republican-leaning kids on Harris. 9 times more. Imagine what they're hearing at home. Check this out.
The study found that Republican-leaning kids were more open to visiting a Democrat-supporting household. The Democrat-leaning kids were about 5 times more likely to say they would not want to go to a pro-Trump house.
Would they be okay with you going over to his house who was really supportive of President Trump?
No.
No. And why not?
Because they know that he's not like black people, so they will not be happy to see me.
Did you hear that?
Would your
This little kid says that he wouldn't go to another kid's house that supports Trump because Trump doesn't like black people. How sad is that?
family let you go over to somebody's house who's really supportive of Donald Trump?
No.
No, they wouldn't?
No.
And why not?
Because, like, my mom and dad don't like Donald Trump at all. Not a single bit.
Would you be okay going over to somebody's house whose family really likes Kamala Harris?
I think it'd be fine. It's just about the personality of the people.
Y'all see that? I think it would be fine. It's just more or less about, the personality of the people. That just tells you how those kids' parents are raising them, how they're feeling. Like, it blows my mind that that's where kids are at nowadays. And, when we look at this last interview that Kamala Harris just did, and to me, it's literally just a joke. And to think that these networks are protecting her so much, there's no truth coming out. All it is trying to protect her image. Check this out.
Stephanie Rule. Now, she's a big supporter of Kamala Harris. She is rooting for Kamala to win. That's fine in my book. She's a radical left-wing talk show host. Needless to say, this was not a hard-hitting interview with a nonpartisan reporter. By the way, that's okay. I interviewed Donald Trump. I definitely want Donald Trump to win. I'm not shy about it. I say it all the time. We are both members of the press. She fancies herself a journalist. She's not. She's a talk show host like me. I'm honest about who I am. Donald Trump doesn't just talk to yours truly. He answers questions. He does press avails on virtually every outlet on a regular basis. So does J.D. Vance. Even he does it with networks that hate him, which is most of the media mob. So for tonight's appearance on MSDNC, to be Kamala's only solo national television interview, after the 16 minutes and 29 seconds with Tim Walz on fake news CNN, it's troubling, especially when she can't even answer a single question without contradicting herself. For example, here she is vowing to fix the economy. Last year, she was saying, we call it Bidenomics, and we're so proud of it. Take a look.
We have aspirations. We have dreams. We can see what's possible. We have an incredible work ethic. But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things. But we don't lack for those things. But not everyone, gets handed stuff on a silver platter. All that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, that is called Bidenomics. That is called Bidenomics, and we are very proud of Bidenomics.
The giggling vice president, proud of Bidenomics, until finally now the realities set in that, I'm not so proud. Also, she talked about fixing the border, but during the very height of the border crisis, your border czar kept telling you the border's secure when it never was, and everybody knew it. Take a look.
Well, first of all, we do have a broken immigration system, and it needs to be fixed. The border is secure.
You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
Never mind, she wants free housing, healthcare, food, education, amnesty, and, sex change operations for illegal immigrants to reward them for their illegal behavior. Is Kamala ever going to explain blatant lies? Is she ever going to be asked by the media? I doubt it. And look at your screen. Will she ever be asked about her radical stated positions in her own words? Because tonight, there was no mention of her support for getting rid of the filibuster to pass the $93 trillion Green New Deal or government health care for all and banning private health insurance or banning fracking and offshore drilling or decriminalizing illegal immigration and offering all these free everything for illegals. And on top of that,
what about
Kamala
Americans?
Harris, even those that are in jail would get sex change operations? It is bizarre. And even during tonight's softball questions, Kamala struggled again. This was supposed to be an easy interview with a friendly MSDNC liberal leftist talk show host that was going to bat for her over the weekend. Take a look.
I don't think it's a lot to ask her to sit down for a real interview.
Exactly.
As opposed to a puff piece in which she describes like her feelings of growing up in Oakland with nice lawns.
Then I would just say to that, when you move to Nirvana, give me your real estate broker's number and I'll be your next door neighbor. We don't live there.
I'm not.
Kamala
I just said I'm not going to vote for her.
Harris is not running for perfect. She's running against Trump. We have two choices. And so there are some things you might not know her answer to. And in 2024, unlike 2016 for a lot of the American people, we know exactly what Trump will do, who he is, and the kind of threat he is to democracy.
Wow.
It's not nirvana to expect somebody who wants to be president to answer questions about what she says she wants to do. Now, she had a hard time answering questions from a loyal supporter at, socialist MSDNC who wants to give her a free pass on everything. How is she going to confront Putin or Xi or the mullahs in Iran as president? And by the way, we reported last night, the Islamic Republic of Iran, they are now actively trying to murder Donald Trump. This should come as no surprise. In 2022, they released a cheap, poorly produced animated video fantasizing about assassinating Donald Trump on a golf course near Mar-a-Lago as a revenge for killing their favorite terrorist, and that would be General Soleimani. And now coordinated efforts from Iran to assassinate Donald Trump are intensifying as the election nears. My sources say it is beyond the pale. It's never been this loud. It's never been this dangerous. But at the same time, the Iranian president is in our country, allowed in this country, to spew anti-American rhetoric, anti-Semitic rhetoric at the United Nations. Here's how Donald Trump responded. By the way,
we are under threat. I have been threatened very directly, and I appreciate the agencies that we've been meeting with, but we've been threatened very directly by Iran. And I think you have to let them know, because the best way to do it is through the office of the president, that you do any attacks on former presidents or candidates for president, your country gets blown to smithereens, as we say.
Can you believe that? Like, that's literally what's happening right now. The Iranian president is at the UN talking about how bad the United States is. They have these open threats to try to take out Trump, and yet our president doesn't say anything. It's, again, weak leadership. They're not fight like that flag represents what people did in 1776 to fight for our rights, to fight for all that we stand for, freedoms, and they weren't afraid to stand up for those rights. But it just seems like we have so many politicians that literally, look, you're here first. I don't want anybody making threats to Biden or Kamala Harris. If they do, they need to answer for that. And there needs to be leadership that stands up for that. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. We need to be able to unite whenever other countries are trying to take out our former presidents or political candidates. That's just messed up. But you're not hearing it from our leadership, and that's a big problem. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why we need new leadership. That's why we need people like Dan Bongino to step into leadership for like the Secret Service and to actually make sure our people are taken care of. And not have to go through all this crap that we've seen with 2 attempts on Trump's life, the incompetencies of trying to protect him across the board. It's just insane. So much is going on now. Mayor Adams he's got this DOJ indictment. I'm telling you, I feel like there's still, like, somebody said something. I think it was Carville that said there's still going to be one more plot twist. And I've been thinking about that and thinking, dang. What is it going to be? Because I can't imagine anything more crazy than what's already happened. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button because we want to serve you every day with the top news. And if you don't mind clicking the thumbs up like button, it really does help to grow the channel. Just want to say thank you to all of our members. Remember, tonight we're doing a show and we're going to show our first giving from this channel. We're asking those to join, go to the links, Join our True Life News family, and we are going to do some big giving with this channel to help people and to help kids that really need it. And we're going to show it right here on screen live so that you see that it's 100% happening. We appreciate everybody that is joining us with that endeavor to do some good in this world. And we also appreciate everybody that blesses us with the Super Chat donation. We are truly grateful, and we are here to serve you. I don't care if the politicians don't say it enough. We are going to say it on this channel as much as possible. We're here to serve you, bring you the top news every single day. Our shows, remember, we do 2 shows Monday through Friday. Today was a little later, but usually around 1 to 1:30. And then usually between 7 to 7:30 at night, Monday through Friday. And then we have 1 show on Saturday and 1 show on Sunday. But looking forward to that show tonight. We love you all. Thank you all for joining us. And we will see you in the next one. Take care.